It's November and Inside Soul is back. Tonight we'll be discussing metabolic mastery, and we will learn about the second lever you can use to affect your metabolism. We'll also learn about a new scientific study detailing the health benefits of rhodiola. This and more next on Inside Soul. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Inside Soul. I am Lon Hudman, Vice President and Founder at Soul Naturals, and your host for tonight's episode of Inside Soul. And I got to tell you, it is good to be back on Inside Soul. We kind of skipped a month during the month of October. Now, I got to see many of you at our Success Summit here in Utah, but I didn't get to see all of you. So it's good to have all of my soul siblings back here for Inside Soul. We have a great program for you tonight. And the main topic of discussion tonight is metabolic mastery. That's what we're going to be talking about. And it's tied into the newest product at Soul Naturals, which is SoulFit GP. And we're going to be talking about that. But before we do that, I know since we skipped a month and not everyone was there at the Success Summit, I know many of you are missing my dad jokes. And you know, one thing though, a lot of people complain and say that my dad jokes are kind of cheesy. Mostly my kids say my dad jokes are cheesy, but I've heard it from a few of you as well, that they're a little bit cheesy. So I decided, you know, if that's the case, I might as well just do dad jokes about cheese. And if you combine that with one of my favorite rock songs from the Eurythmics, which is one of my favorite bands, they just got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, by the way. If you combine dad cheese jokes with the Eurythmics, you end up with a t-shirt that looks like this. Now, hopefully you can see all this, but it says, "Sweet dreams are made of cheese. Who am I to diss a brie? I cheddar the world and the feta cheese. Everybody's looking for Munster." There is the cheesiest dad joke you've ever heard. Again, so welcome to Inside Soul. Like I said, we have a great program, and we're going to be talking about SoulFit GP, which is the newest product introduced at the Success Summit. And then we had another kind of a post-event launch, and we talked about the ingredients and some of the benefits, but I'm just going to run through some of the key ingredients, amazing ingredients in SoulFit GP. There's yerba mate. There is red beetroot. In addition, we have apple cider vinegar. Another ingredient is Rooibos extract. And we also have nopal. Okay, and one other ingredient, Coleus forskolii. In addition to all of these herbal ingredients, we also have in SoulFit GP a probiotic. And it is I'm going to try and say this, Propionibacterium Friedenreichii. I think that's close. Hopefully Dr. Allison will be proud of me. I tried to say it correctly. Anyway, this bacteria and this probiotic is very healthy, and as mentioned in at the launch of this, probiotics are one of the key levers that you can use to affect your metabolism. And at the launch, 10 different levers were introduced. And we introduced the first lever, which was digestive enzymes. The second lever that you can use to affect your metabolism is probiotics. And Dr. Allison Caldwell-Andrews has prepared a presentation about this second lever. And we're just going to listen to part of that, and then I will give you the link where you can listen to the rest of it. But here you go. Here's an explanation of how probiotics can affect metabolism.
This is Dr. Caldwell-Andrews, and today we are going to talk about the Soul Lever probiotics. What is the lever of probiotics? Well, so levers in general are various areas in which there's opportunity for you to drive change toward better health for you. And so you think about it like you're pressing different levers that can help create change. And so probiotics is one of these levers. Probiotics are a lever because your body's microbiome, and we'll talk about what that means in a second, the microbiome can change how your energy is handled, how your nutrients are handled, and how elimination is handled in your body. All these levers work together. And so part of what we'll talk about is how the Solle probiotic lever works together with the other levers. And it's impossible to not bring this up each time because, like I said, all the levers work together. Nothing is by itself in the body. This is what holism means. The holistic approach is one that looks at the body as a system. And that system, or in systems theory, each part affects each other part. And so all the levers help each other to work better. Every single lever out there that we are talking about for our Solle levers, every single one affects the microbiome. They affect the probiotics. So here's the big picture. Your microbiome contains microorganisms. They all live in you, in your gut. And so if you think back to this idea that you're a body with like a big giant hole that goes, maybe not a big giant hole, but a hole that goes all the way through you. Inside that hole live a number of microorganisms. You have bacteria, you have fungi, you have viruses, you even have parasites. A lot of these can be very helpful to your body. And in fact, without them, you would not function very well. And so probiotics are the beneficial bacteria that live in your gut. Probiotics also affect metabolism. And so in some ways, we're talking about levers as they affect metabolism as a whole. Metabolism is the process of change. So how your body changes, and what we primarily look at is how we convert food to energy, how we convert food to building blocks, nutrients for your body's maintenance, and how we help your body transport nutrients and eliminate waste. So that's what we think of when we talk about metabolism. And probiotics will affect your metabolism. Now, everybody's gut is different. They all differ. We have different amounts, different types of bacteria. These types are affected by where we live, by how we live, by who we live around. We all differ in terms of what's in our gut in terms of bacteria. Some bacteria is almost always useful. And so we generally classify that bacteria as a probiotic. Some bacteria is almost always harmful. That mixture differs from person to person. We have to remember, too, that especially in terms of probiotics, we are mostly ignorant. We know so little about the microbiome. We know so little about what probiotics are out there, what probiotics people have, what influences them. This is still pretty new science. So new discoveries are being made all the time. It's a wonderful career you could grow up into. Good bacteria comes from a number of places. And so your whole microbiome is built by your DNA, your mom's DNA, her microbiome, her vaginal microbiome. So when you went down the birth canal, if you were born by cesarean section, you didn't get this. But when you went down the birth canal, you would then be exposed to some very helpful bacteria from the microbiome in the vagina that will help you. Your environment affects what bacteria you have, where you live, the surroundings you live in, what you use to clean with, honestly, will affect it. What you eat, how much you eat, when you eat, all of those things affect what is in your gut. It affects your good bacteria. There is, of course, a lot that damages the microbiome. And so things that damage the bacteria or damage the good bacteria include things like antibiotics. We know antibiotics is just wrecks your microbiome, and it takes some time to rebuild it. A lot of times you can never quite rebuild it to what it used to be, especially after repeated antibiotic use. It's very much a challenge. That will damage the microbiome. Poor sleep is damaging to your gut bacteria. It's damaging to the probiotics. Alcohol certainly damages probiotics. Inactivity or lack of exercise is damaging to the microbiome. Your diet can be, if you have really low fiber, if you're eating a lot of sugar, if you have a poor variety of foods, like just not very many foods, that damages your microbiome. Stress also damages the microbiome. And so take a look at all of these things and think about what you can do to make a difference Like, for example, you could maybe do 7 minutes of dancing to music in your living room for a little bit of exercise. Or maybe you could increase your fiber, grab some good vibrations. That's a pretty tasty way to get some fiber down into you. Reduce your stress. Think about adaptogens, increase your sleep, etc. And so think about what you're doing that might damage the microbiome at the same time you're trying to help it. And so try not to act at cross purposes. These days, 75% of the world's food supply relies primarily on 12 different plants. And here are the plants: wheat, rice, sugarcane, corn, soy, palm oil, cassava, sorghum, millet, groundnuts, and sweet potatoes. That drives 61% of our calories here on Earth. Only 12 plants, when there are many, many others. And so when we think about limited diversity of foods and how that affects your microbiome, here's one of the things to look at, is that we have sort of devolved into only accessing about 12 plants and 5 animal species for almost all of our food. Gut diversity, however, is very good. The more diverse generally, the better off you are. And a diverse diet is also going to be helpful for you in that way. Diets, when you're eating food, you're eating information from the earth. You could think of it that way. And so think about all the different types of information that you could eat, in addition to the different building blocks and the different secondary metabolites or medicinal activity in some of these plants. There's over 300,000 edible plants we could be using. We primarily use 12. It's kind of funny, isn't it? And so I noticed, there are a lot of our, like cucumbers and lettuce, those sorts of things aren't there, but you could still count those up and come up with not very much diversity that you generally buy in the grocery store. So more diversity in eating leads to more diversity in your microbiome, which leads to better health.
All right. And I know what you're thinking. You want to keep listening, right? I want to know more. Well, guess what? You can listen to that entire presentation. That was less than half of the presentation about probiotics, and fascinating stuff. Like, I did not realize how much of our caloric intake was centered around, 12 different plants and 5 different animals. Kind of fascinating stuff. Well, there's a lot more information in that presentation, and here's the link that you can use. There's actually 3 different ways that you can listen to the rest of that presentation. Use this link. Also, we're going to put that in the chat box. And also, if you just go to our YouTube channel at the conclusion of tonight's program, you'll be able to find that video and you can watch the rest of it. Now, I'm also going to tell you that Dr. Allison is going to make another appearance in tonight's program. She's got a little bit more to say about a different subject. Now, all of this talk about levers and metabolic mastery all centers around the new product, SoleFit GP. And we're getting great results and great testimonials about SoleFit GP. And one of my good friends, Betty Runkle, has agreed to share her experience with SoleFit GP. So let's listen to Betty Runkle.
Well, I think Soul Naturals has finally done it. I think they found the missing link for metabolism and for cognitive function in the new SoleFit GP. I personally have lost 12 pounds without changing anything else in my routine, and I am far more organized and far more focused, and my brain is finally, for the first time in my life, in a calm, focused state. So, yay Soul Naturals and yay me!
And yay, Betty, thanks for sharing that. And that testimonial is just one of many that we continue to receive every day about SoleFit GP. If you haven't tried it, check out SoleFit GP. And if you know someone who is struggling with metabolism, wants to get change their body composition, have them try SoleFit GP and start on that journey, that path toward metabolic mastery. All right, now, as I said, there is another topic of tonight's program we wanted to talk about, and I wanted to have an ingredient spotlight, if you will. And tonight's ingredient that we're going to spotlight is rhodiola. And rhodiola is an adaptogen that's actually found in 3 different Soul Naturals products. It's found in Solle Complete, both Dutch cocoa and natural. It's also found in Adaptable and in our signature drink, Solle Vital. Rhodiola is an amazing adaptogen, and it is the subject of tonight's Caldwell Capsule.
Here we are. This is Dr. Caldwell Andrews with recent research, nerd alert for sure. So we're going to nerd out a little bit tonight, looking at some some recent research on one of the components of one of the products from Solle Naturals. And this time we're going to talk about rhodiola. The big idea here is that rhodiola can help you with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of background so that you can understand what this research article is talking about. And so the first thing to think about is that rhodiola helps you with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and that fat accumulation in the liver, that's the first step toward getting NAFLD. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is essentially having too much fat stored in the liver, which really compromises the functioning of the liver. The liver. Okay, here's the background you need. Fat is stored in triglyceride molecules. The triglycerides are not bad in and of themselves. It's just when there's too many of them that becomes a problem. So fat is stored in triglycerides. The liver is where we metabolize or change fat. So change process, that's what the metabolism is all about. And so the liver will grab fatty acids right from your blood plasma. The liver also makes fat. So if you remember, part of what the liver does is it converts excess sugar into fat. So these fats can be burned up because they contain a lot of energy, or they are dropped into blood plasma inside low density lipoproteins, right? LDL, which we find to be not as useful. Usually the liver only stores small amounts of this fat known as triglycerides. But sometimes what happens is people eat way too much. And so in those cases of overnutrition or in obesity or sometimes in other body process problems, the liver then accumulates triglycerides. And this is known when it's becomes excessive, right? This is then known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So autophagy is how your body recycles cell components. That's a couple new words for you today. Autophagy is how the body recycles cell components in general. How it recycles fat cells in specific is lipophagy, fat cell recycling. And so what happens is you want fat cells to be broken down and used, right? And so rhodiola helps with lipophagy by reducing the lipids in the liver, breaks them down through lipophagy. So rhodiola will reduce the fat that's in the liver already. And so that will help with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because you're reducing some of those lipids in the liver. The other thing that rhodiola does to help with that is it activates something called macrophage migration inhibitory factor. And so that long title is really just the name for a particular protein that's involved in the immune response. And so this protein is activated in response to stress, but it can also be activated by rhodiola in order to help the liver reduce NAFLD. And so this macrophage migration inhibitory factor, this protein, gets activated by rhodiola and in turn helps reduce non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Pretty cool. Here is the reference in case you want to go enjoy that for yourself, and have a great day.
Rhodiola is indeed an amazing adaptogen. I did not know that it had that effect on fats and on fatty liver. So again, one more benefit of rhodiola, and again, it's found in 3 of our Solle Naturals products. It's in Solle Vital, it is in Solle Complete, and also in Adaptable. So hopefully you are taking one of those on a regular basis and getting rhodiola in your diet. I want to thank Allison, Dr. Allison Caldwell Andrews. She did double duty tonight, and she put together 2 great presentations, the one on rhodiola and also on the second lever in our metabolic mastery. Also, Tonight, it's kind of a big night, right? Everybody knows what's going on. It is election night. Hopefully, everyone got out and did their civic duty and voted, and hope that the candidate that you're supporting wins election tonight. But you know what the best thing about it being election night is? Tonight is the last day, or today's the last day we're going to have to listen to continuous political ads on TV and on the radio. We finally get a break, a respite from that. One final thing before we conclude. Our next episode of Inside Soul will be on December 6th and the same time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Hopefully you will join us then. And until then, just remember, it is your body, your mind, your life. Good night.